please join me now in welcoming Mr. Dan Korte.
Thank you, Jeff. It's great to see everybody here today. I had the opportunity to walk around here earlier. Some amazing technology in here. And I'll say up front, I am not anti-technology as you hear my comments here today. But I want to talk a little bit about the balance that all of us have to make as we're deciding on what technologies and what automation and innovation are the right tools for our companies and our businesses. So first, one chart on LMI, what we do. We do assembly, machining, composites, fabrication of all sorts. We really do full spectrum aero manufacturing. We bring a lot of those things together into assemblies, both small and large. We've got 22 sites that operate in the United States, Mexico, in the United Kingdom, and in Sri Lanka. So we're all over the world. We support customers in the commercial aircraft industry, business and regional jets, and military aerospace. Very proud of what we do and the people that do it inside of LMI. So what do? Well, I try to oversee the daily management of those 22 facilities, the 2,000 people that are in LMI, and they're making the over 40,000 individual parts and assemblies that go to aerospace customers worldwide. I help lead the development and execution of our long-term growth strategy for our company. I make sure those employees have the right tools and resources to not only do their jobs, but do them safely, efficiently, and effectively. I meet our customer needs, which are varying, growing, and becoming more demanding every day, and that's okay. That's what all of us in this industry do. And I create shareholder value for all those that entrust their monies inside LMI and to grow and prosper for the future. So one of the things that comes with that is I have to help prioritize where to make investments. And I can tell you as I walk down these aisles, I love everything I see. I'm an engineer. I love to engineer. I love to see new things out there and go, wow, I'd love to have one of those. Can I have one? But I can't say yes all the time. I get personally across my desk every year about 100 requests for investment, for capital, for investments in new proposals that are going out the door. Those exceed $500 million a year, which is slightly more than the overall revenue that LMI produces in 1 year. So as you can tell, we can't invest in every one of those ideas. So I have to say no. Not only that, I have to say no 90% of the time. That's really hard. It's really hard with all this wonderful technology and innovation that goes on around us every day. Now, sometimes it's easy. I was in my new job in LMI Aerospace literally about 2 weeks. And I was walking through one of our facilities that does processing, does chemical processing. And having been in this industry, as Jeff said, almost 30 years, I could tell just by looking around that there were some issues with working conditions in this factory. And I made a decision right there on the spot that we were going to invest in that facility. And we put in new processing tanks. We moved a lot of the equipment around. We moved tanks around that facility. We invested in lighting and all kinds of infrastructure. We put a major investment in that facility from me visiting the facility for about 1 hour. Now, most decisions aren't that easy, though, in this industry. They take a lot more analysis, a lot of homework, a lot of ROI calculations, a lot of looking at other factors. And I'd like to talk about some of those factors today because I think they impact all of us in this industry. So that scale across the top goes from black to white. And that gradation up there is to drive home a point. That oftentimes these decisions are not black and white. It's easy in that prior example when you can look at something and say, I know what has to be done here. Most times it's a lot more challenging. But here's how I go through the checklist. And this is in order, appropriately in this order. The first question I ask myself, and my senior leaders ask ourselves, if we make this investment, is it for safety reasons? Could it eliminate potential injuries? Eliminate a safety hazard in our organization? I think all of us in this room, when we can definitively say yes to that answer, would say we're going to have to find a way to make this investment in our business. The next question that we ask ourselves is quality. Is it going to help us improve our overall quality? Is it going to help our fewer defects potentially get passed on to our customers? Reduce the cost of quality inside of our factories? Productivity. Is it going to make our people more efficient so that we can do more with less? We can pass some of those savings on to our customer so they can sell more product and win more business, so we can produce more of what we produce on behalf of our customer set. And finally, is it strategic? Does it fit with the long-term growth strategy of our customer? Just because it's good to do doesn't mean it's the part of the business that we want to be in for the long term. So we go through a calculated decision process. So I'll give you a few examples of where we use automation. And all of you who are in this kind of space probably have technology even better than this in your own companies. And some of the examples of cutting edge machine tools and automation that are around this very facility probably cause some of these examples to pale in comparison. But we selectively use cutting edge automation. So here's a robot that makes 230 different parts in one machining cell. Pretty substantial. They're small parts, obviously, but this robotic cell used to be, now it takes one person to come in and load the pallets up, part-time job for them. It used to be two people that had to work around the clock to produce these 230 plus parts that come off of this machine. You know, that's a lot of productivity improvement. We produce 6.3 million parts a year for our customers. So if we can produce these under 230 in a simpler way, we can focus our energies somewhere else. So pretty easy to see the payback on here, and there is a good ROI. Here's another one, and we have multiple operations like this in our factories. This happens to be a 4-axis machining center. We have 5-axis palletized machining centers as well. But these allow us to operate lights out. So we will, on the day shift a lot of times, we will load up these pallets, get everything ready to go, make sure all the raw material is staged, and then we'll run 24 hours a day on a machine without any interaction from our employees. It allows us to improve our spindle utilization time to over 90%. Again, probably not news to a lot of you here in the industry. But the ability to do our setups offline, control this kind of automation, it's reduced the labor content in these particular part families that we build on these machines by 50%, which is, again, a very big deal for our customers. But you can't do every part type we produce in here because of the quantities we build, sometimes the lower quantities and the amount of tool changes we have. This only works for certain part types that we produce and certain customers that we have large volumes for. But this is a pretty good example of a good use of automation in our industry. So I'd like you to meet Rusty. Rusty is my next example. I mean, Rusty is replacing an operation. You can see a large bulkhead assembly for a commercial aircraft back here. This is a process that was a safety issue before. We had a lot of ergonomic issues here. Employees that, and doing the operation were causing tendonitis, other things in their wrists and arms and elbows. And you know what the number one defect issue that I think I've found in my career, it doesn't matter whether I was with Boeing, Rolls-Royce, or LMI Aerospace, is drilling holes. Seems like, you know, an industry like ours that has come so far, the number one defect wouldn't be drilling holes, but guess what? Drilling holes is a complex matter in aerospace. Rusty helps us drill precise holes day in and day out. Rusty never gets tired. And he does the work of 3 people and takes very little support to keep Rusty going. So we're pretty happy with Rusty. But again, it's a targeted application. It's on a high volume program. And the ROI is very conclusive with Rusty. This is a pretty new operation that we just put in place in the last year. This is a robotic spray maskant application. You can see we do this. This robot sprays in about 5 to 10 minutes, what used to take a 3-day process to do. This is a large volume business jet program, actually. It's a safer process, less environmental. We don't have much waste of the product. It allows consistency throughout it. And again, there's a cost factor in labor. Then we take this product over and we do laser scribing on it. All automated. We do it in 45 minutes. It used to take 8 hours to do. It's more consistent, more precise again. 25% improvement in quality, and I actually think as we move on with this process, we're going to see even better, more improvements in quality than what we've seen thus far as we've implemented this new technology. And I saw M. Torres back here. I didn't mean to give them a plug, but they've been very helpful with us in developing this tool set. We also do laser trimming and drilling with one of their machines. Again, you can see the productivity improvements that we've got out of automation through these products. Now, I'm not just here to talk about automation today and investing in everything I said, but let me give you a couple more examples. 3D printing or additive manufacturing. A lot of us are working in this field right now. We're working in this field. This is one of our 3D printers that we have. And, you know, longer term, and I know there's companies already producing production parts with 3D printing. We're still doing a lot of prototyping. We're doing some tooling with our 3D printers and developing tooling. One example that just happened over the last few weeks, we had an engineering team in Japan. And they were working on a new jet, a new commercial jet in Japan. And we didn't have some of the parts we needed to do a trial fit up. In fact, they weren't going to be there for about another 6 weeks. So we were able to produce a prototype of the part with our 3D printer, get it to Japan. We did all the fit up work. Everything got preloaded, pre-assessed. We actually had to make a few tweaks to the structure to make it work. But then 6 weeks later, production parts came out. They fit perfectly into the nose cone of this aircraft. So these kinds of technologies work, and they support us. And I think, you know, again, we have a whole other presentation on how this technology is going to add to our industry over the next 5, 10, 15 years. But it's going to be huge and a huge game changer. We're putting in a new ERP system. We're totally revamping our operation. We're putting in SAP across 22 sites. I know there's a couple of you right now who are choking on your turkey sandwich. You know, we know it's a big investment. We know it's going to be a lot of hard work. But we run a very highly integrated operation. Sometimes we have seven of our factories working together to produce a single part to go into an assembly. So we have to be integrated. We have to know where our product is at all times. We have to know what it costs. We have to have one single source of data throughout our business. So having a consistent ERP system, probably a step that many of you have already taken. After we've been in business since 1948. We've got 5 MRP systems operating in our business right now. When we get this done in 22 months, we'll have one ERP system that'll power our entire business. So we do make investments, big investments in technology and innovation. But how do we make those? I'm coming back to my point I made earlier. It's not simple. And so I put together I think a very simple model that I just think about. It uses the 4 aspects we talked about earlier. And any new idea, you know, technology can't be the end state. It's got to be, how does this add to our business? So is there a way that you can evaluate it on a scale, say from 1 to 5, on how it will affect your customers, how it affects your strategy, your productivity, your safety of your company? And it's really this choice between automation and human capital. I mean, to me, the most powerful thing inside of LMI is not all those tools I just showed you. It's not those robots. It's not, you know, the new ERP system we're implementing. It's the people. It's the mechanics on the floor. It's the manufacturing engineers. It's the experts that deal with our finance systems and try to get us the right data to make the right decisions. Those are the people that add the most value in our organization. So this balance of where do you invest in technology versus where do you invest in talent management in your organization, to me, is one of the most critical decisions that we make as leaders in our business. So I think as engineers, it's one of the things we have to do. We get enamored, I get enamored with technology, and I like the newest thing, and I can see the value. But A, we don't have the resources to invest in everything, and B, it's not the right thing to do for our company. Everybody can buy the latest piece of equipment out here. Every one of my competitors can walk down this aisle and buy the exact same machine we can buy. So that puts us even. What's going to set us apart from our competitors? It's the human capital. It's our brain power. It's how do we put that together differently than anybody else has thought about. I mean, I look at something like this. I mean, you know, a lot of us have these in the room, right? And when a new one comes out, we want to get the newest one, right? It's got a better camera in it. It's got more memory. It's going to do something better than the last one did. So we're the engineers, as a group, are generally the early adopters on this chart when it comes to technology. Not all of us, but a lot of us are. As a company, I don't want to be lagging behind. If all my competitors have a way to do something for half the cost, and I don't, I mean, I can't operate with that kind of disadvantage in the marketplace. However, there's a sweet spot in the middle there, especially for a company like LMI, where we're smart consumers. To me, the best example of that is 3D and additive manufacturing. I mean, I used to come from Boeing. I got a pretty good idea how much money Boeing, GE, Lockheed Martin, United Technologies, just to name a few, and then I could go into automotive and give you another 4 or 5 of them, how much money they're investing per year in additive manufacturing. Now, do I think I'm going to be able to invest as LMI, a $400 million company, faster than them and be ahead of them on the technology curve? Probably not. But do I need to be a smart consumer? Do I need to invest enough? Do I need to have my engineers involved in 3D manufacturing? Do I got to be ready at the right time to enter the marketplace, ready to produce production parts with additive manufacturing sometime soon? Absolutely. So it's that spot in the middle that's often the best place to be when you're investing your shareholders and your company's precious resources. So that's my message to you here today. Our businesses, our industry can't rest solely on automation. Like I said, your competitors can get all that same automation. It's the right mix of people, skilled and motivated people, capabilities and capacity, and intellectual property. How do we learn to do something for each and every one of our companies out there that is unique and can't be copied by anyone else, anywhere else in the world? That's what will set all of us apart. You can't be all things to all customers. And the world depends on us. All of you in this room, we do something that's very, very unique in this world. We connect and we bring people together in aerospace and all the other fields that we serve. And so we have to continue to innovate and automate, but we got to do it in the right way. And we got to bring people along with us. And so if we can marry the technology out here with the people in our organizations, the next century is going to be incredible, what we're going to accomplish. Thank you very much. Absolutely.
So we're going to do some Q&A, and some of the SME reps will be around, get some questions. I'm going to start out with a leading question. So we all read about millennials and fast and empowerment, et cetera. When it comes, Dan, to investment, how do you tap millennials to bring forward ideas, and how do you push decision-making down about what are the prudent investments to make in technologies?
It's a great question, Jeff. I can tell you one of our millennials has a 3D printer on their desk, literally a small one, the microwave-sized 3D printers. And he's got it on it because he loves playing with it and tinkering with it every day. And he's created actually some nice little prototype parts that we've used in our operations. So I think it's, we're trying to find ways to bring people together. We're working a partnership right now with a local university where we're doing some, we're involved in some of their senior design projects. Our employees that are more recent out of school, maybe a little more recent than myself at least I'll say, really enjoy going back into the universities, helping the next generation of students come out. They get charged in doing that kind of work, Jeff. So I think finding little projects like that and ways inside your organization. I think also communication. I remember when I was growing up in this industry, again, 30 years ago, seems like a long time ago, I was so fearful of going up even to a middle manager and saying hi in the organization. I mean, the young people in my company at least, they walk up to the CEO, they'll walk into my office and say, I think we should be doing X. And they just graduated from school 6 months ago. They have no fear of authority, which I think is wonderful. I mean, I get some great ideas. They've got a lot of enthusiasm, and we need to welcome that. And, the fact that, a couple of them would rather have me text them what's going on, I mean, we have to adjust to their way of thinking and their way of operating. And I think companies that do that successfully are going to do very well.
All right, another question, and if anybody else has any other questions, please raise your hand. Dave will collect those. So this is an interesting one. The question goes like this. Do you think there's some aerospace upcoming technologies that could be beneficial and applicable potentially to other industries such as mining or mineral processing or any heavy chemical industries? So how do you transfer technologies from aerospace to other manufacturing verticals?
Well, I think we've been doing that as an industry for the entire history of aerospace. I mean, if you look at some of the technologies that have gone back and forth, even between automotive, let's just start there, and aerospace, because we were having that conversation earlier, Jeff. Autonomous vehicles. I mean, really, a lot of the early work on autonomy didn't come out of Google. It didn't come out of Ford and GM. It came out of the aerospace industry. I mean, F-18s have basically been landing themselves on carrier decks for about 20 years now. Most people don't know that. They see Top Gun, they assume the pilot's always in control. Well, let me tell you, there's a whole lot of automation getting that aircraft to hit the third wire every time it lands on the carrier deck. That same technology has morphed into the automotive industry. I think automotive is going to push it ahead now, and it'll fold back into the aerospace industry. I think, similarly, you mentioned some of the industries like mining and chemical technology. I mean, I look at what's happening in composites right now as a great example of how industries coming up with new formulations for composite technologies. They're getting tried out in either automotive or aerospace, and then we're finding feedback loops back into the raw materials industry again. I mean, another example is, I think what composites has quite frankly done to the metals industry. I mean, I would hazard a guess that some of the great advancements in aluminum technologies and other technologies wouldn't have been made as quickly if it wasn't for the push that's happening from the use of composites. And now we're finding this new marriage of multiple materials technology. And I think aerospace has been key to that. Yeah?
Okay, next question. Are investors more excited about investing in technology or investing in human capital?
I would tell you investors in general are excited about return on assets. They're excited about what's your cash flow going to look like for the next 10 years. And how are you going to create greater shareholder value for me as an investor? I mean, that's what we all, if you invest your money and I say I'm going to get you 5% and somebody else says I'm going to get you 10%, where do you want to put your retirement savings? You want to put it someplace they say I can get you 10%, as long as it's a reasonable risk profile. I mean, so when I talk to investors and I tell them what we're trying to do, the same story I told here today about marrying the two together and finding that right balance, I get a very receptive audience because they realize somewhere in that mix is something that's not easily repeatable. And that's what I'm trying to find, is that secret sauce that the rest of my competitors can't copy overnight.
All right, speaking of secret sauce,
Yep.
what factors do you consider in deciding between buying new technology from somebody else versus doing the research to develop it in-house?
I would say that my tendency is to buy it outside as long as it's not core to the strategy of my business. If our business is to develop the latest machine tools, then yes, I'm going to do that inside. But in most cases, I'm very willing to find who the best is in the industry. And generally, for a lot of technologies, you're not going to find that outside. Now, if it's how to build a better aerospace assembly, that's what we do. So we might find add-on pieces, but if it's how to learn how to do lean manufacturing better, I'm going to learn that inside. I may bring in some experts to learn from, but then I'm going to very quickly try to get our team up to speed to how to be as proficient as anyone in the industry in that regard.
Okay, Dan, this listener says the following. We spend most of our assembly cost and time drilling holes and installing fasteners, not rivets. What do you see in the future for automating this?
Well, the example I used with Rusty the robot, I mean, if it's a repeatable operation that you have to do frequently, a robot is a very good example. In fact, Boeing right now with their new 777X assembly process, which I've read about, it's going to be primarily automated drilling involved in doing that. And there's probably some companies in the room here that are involved in that very process. But you have to have the quantity of drilling operations that you can justify that. Some of these, like I said, we build 40,000 different part types. Some of those part types we may only make 50 a year. It's hard to invest in a robot for something you're only going to make 50 of a year. So in that case, you have to invest in craftsmanship learning centers where people learn how to do drilling better. Maybe there's a way to even just make the drills better. And there's actually been a lot of advancement in something as simple as a drill and how to make it more repeatable and first-time quality. So I don't think there's one answer to that question, Jeff. There's a lot of places that we're going to have to invest.
Okay, did you need to retain your workforce when you implement automation? And what kind of skills are most important in doing so?
I think the answer to that is yes. I mean, when you implement automation, because you need your people, your best people, to help you figure out how to deploy that automation effectively. And if immediately you do a layoff and say, well, I don't need any of you now, thanks for helping me get there, you're not going to get their help the next time you go around. So retraining people how to do different aspects of your business as you bring in the automation is a very effective way to do business. I can tell you, Rusty the robot, the example I used earlier, wasn't widely accepted in Cottonwood Falls, Kansas when he first arrived into that facility. Now everybody loves him. That's why they gave him, I didn't give him the name Rusty. The shop floor workers gave him the name Rusty because they realized he took away the one job in the factory that nobody wanted. They hated doing that particular drilling operation. And the fact that we've trained those same people to do other tasks that they enjoy doing more, I think is the way that we capture the hearts and minds of the people that we have inside LMI.